good afternoon, maybe also good evening, good morning, because I know that the people are joining us from various places in the world. I am Janna Hoffmann, Chair of Art and Science Node, and together with ASN curator, Dr. Karolina Blasło-Malinowska, we are very happy to welcome you to our second event after yesterday opening of Art and Science Synergy Program and Plant Biology Europe 2021, to an exclusive workshop accompanying the virtual exhibition Capture the Futures, the Roots to Root Networks and Beyond. We are happy to see so many people joining us on Zoom and Facebook to open their minds for new cooking solutions and to challenge their own cooking talents by learning more about benefits of inulin, but also about the richness of our gustatory system. Art and Science Synergy Program bridges two complex interdisciplinary projects. Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, generously accompanied by ASN Artist in Residence Program at CHIC Innovation Consortium, the 5-year project in the frame of Horizon 2020. Today, we take a fascinating route to the chicory root and beyond, exploring one of the main benefits of CHIC research, namely related to inulin that we can extract from the chicory root and to replace sugar for the advantage of our health and our healthy futures. I have a great pleasure to open this fascinating and delicious workshop inspired by the world-renowned artists and members of ASN, Jill Scott and Marille Hahne, who, for their outstanding artwork, has been working with Sensus, famous inulin producer, represented today by Matthew Rod. They had a great idea to invite the world champion cook, Jordi Bordas, to share his knowledge and experience to produce a novel dessert that creates new trends in pastry of today and of the futures. This workshop is not only about tasty and healthy desserts, but it is a great example of interdisciplinary synergy to disseminate knowledge and tackle one of the bigger challenges of our times, like obesity or cancer. So let me introduce the participant of our workshop, starting from our master, Jordi Bordas, the winner of the Pastry World Cup in Lyon in 2021. And Karina, can you change the slides to show our participants?
They are changing. You're not seeing the change?
No, I'm not seeing the change.
Okay, so let me stop and share again.
Yes.
How about now?
Now I see Jill and Marille on our screen, but if you scroll a little bit up, we will definitely see.
But do you see now Jordi?
No, I see now Jill, Scott, and Marille Hahne.
Okay, so when I'm changing, it doesn't work.
Oh,
so
yes,
let me just
yeah.
Now let's stay like this.
Yeah, sorry. Today we have a lot of different media in our evening. And Jordi Bordas is the winner of the Pastry World Cup in Lyon 2011, and today is joined by Adriana Jaworska, head of the RDI at Jordi Bordas Innovative Pastry Education. You could see already Dr. Jill Scott, an artist and educator with long year experience in the unique transdisciplinary field of art, science, and technology interactions. Marille Hahne, artist and long-year professor in filmmaking at Zurich University of the Arts, specializing in films about art and science collaboration. Then we have Matthew de Rode, the innovation manager at Sensus, And last but not least, there are us here with Carolina, who will be moderating today's workshop. And we have Katarina Kankar from Wageningen University and Research, who is actually the leader of Art and Science of CHIC Consortium. And I would like also to thank all sponsors and partners. And especially I would like to mention our CHIC partner, Macarena Sanz and Ronald Tipan from ID Consortium for their support and promotion of this event session, and Chico Coffee for providing the delicious chicory coffee for artistic cappuccino. And you will learn so soon how to make it. But before we will go for action, I would like to ask Dr. Katarina Kankar to introduce us to the chicory research for the benefit of our health.
Hello, I think you can already hear me now.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I would like to welcome you to the cooking workshop also from the side of the chicory project, the CHICque. And in this project, we are working on root chicory as a multi-purpose crop, and we want to produce two kinds of products in chicory, the inulin that you already heard about, and also medicinal terpenes. And this is a Horizon 2020 sponsored project that is now in its 4th year of running. I would like to ask you to go to the next slide. Yeah, so the name CHICque comes actually from chicory, and I think you know this plant because of its blue flowers that are spread all over Europe. But we work on a particular kind of chicory, that's the root chicory. You can see it on the right-hand side. And this is a special variety or several varieties of chicory that have very, very big taproots in which these terpenes and inulins are accumulated. It's specially grown in the north of Europe, in France, Belgium, and in the Netherlands. Next slide. So in our project, we use genome editing for two purposes. One is to enhance the food fiber composition of chicory roots. You can see the soluble food fibers of chicory. They are shown in this picture. They are called inulins, and they have normally one glucose and then a stretch of fructose molecules attached to them. And they are already used as a soluble fiber in health products like yogurts or muesli bars. If you start reading the labels, you will find them in many products, and they have a very beneficial effect on gut bacteria. Now, the other product that is also made by chicory roots are the terpenes. They are produced in latex. You can see a kind of white milky substance coming from the root, and that's where the terpenes are concentrated. And in our project, we are also using gene editing for making roots of chicory that would be very much enriched in these healthy terpenes. Maybe the next slide again. Yeah, so it's a quite large project. We are with 17 partners, and really many disciplines are represented in the consortium. And besides the technological work, where we are working on gene editing techniques for inulin and terpene production, we are also looking at the assessment of this new technology, and we are looking at safety assessment, economics, and also business cases. But 1/3 of our efforts is actually dedicated also to communication about gene editing. And there we mean talking about people that work with inulin, that work with chicory, but also the general public. And for that, we have also innovative communication techniques. And one of them is connecting the science and the art. Next slide, please. And Joanna and Carolina are playing a role in this in the Art and Science Synergy Foundation, and they are really creative in finding new ways to communicate about science. And also the artist teams that are involved, that you will hear about, I think, still today. They are creating two wonderful projects where they are talking about chicory and the products of chicory in a completely new way. So please look at the projects Aftertaste and Biotechnology from the Blue Flower. Next slide. We are also participating in the Plant Biology Europe Congress with a poster. And if you would like to know more about science that is behind the chicory project, the CHICque, you can follow us on different networks, but also get in contact with us. And I'm very glad that today we don't talk about only the scientific part, but we will experience chicory in a very new, delicious way. And I'm very much looking forward to the workshop. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Katja, for your informative and very also inspiring words. And now I would like Karina to say more about artist in residency projects and also the whole context of to the event.
Yes. Hello, thank you for being with us and joining our meeting on both Zoom as platform and also live stream that is happening right now on Art and Science Node Berlin Facebook account. I will now guide you through what will gonna happen during this evening and the following day. And later, before we go and dig into the world of inulin, present you what this event is a part of actually. So we already we are already done with Dr. Katja Kankar, who told us about the CHICque project and also the communication part of it, which Art and Science Node is invested in. After I will introduce you to the Capture the Futures, Our Biotech Planet, the Roots to Roots Networks and Beyond exhibition. We will have Dr. Matthew De Rode from Sensus that will talk about the inulin and oligofructose products produced by Sensus that will be used during today's event. We will follow then with Professor Marille Hahne that will present a part of the Chicory Unpacked video that she is preparing in the course of the Artists in Residence program together with Jill Scott. This movie is called Cultivated Plants from Chick Farmers to Table. And then Professor Jill Scott will guide you into the details of the multimedia project of the Aftertaste. Last but not least, of course, the World Pastry Champion Jordi Bordas, together with Adriana Jaworska, the head of Research, Innovation and Development Department from Jordi Bordas Pastry School. They will guide us into the 2 recipes that you will be using for preparation of the events, and we'll follow with the live cooking. Tomorrow, we will actually be tasting everything that we will prepare today and evaluate the value of the desserts in terms of its smell, taste, appearance, texture, and so on. And we will be thinking how inulin affects the sensations and how can coffee also affect what we are feeling when tasting those desserts. So I will now switch to a short introduction of the exhibition that the Aftertaste project is a part of. So let me just go to another sharing. And actually, it's an part of the event that was led yesterday with the exhibition's opening. With this commented video guided tour, I will walk you through the fully virtual exhibition, Capture the Futures, Our Biotech Planet, the Roots to Roots, Networks and Beyond, bridging the worlds of art, science and technology. It involves interdisciplinary conversations, which offer original paths to explore and reflect on interconnections between environmental, cultural and socio-political issues that shape both our present time and our futures. It provides an international survey of artworks and art projects created by artists inspired by scientific research and collaborating with scientists in the field of plant sciences, also biotechnology. On the search to pathways to renewal and recovery, we turn not only to the ingenuity of human creativity, new scientific discoveries or technological solutions. We explore also the inspiration coming from the biological worlds flourishing around root systems, the highly effective networks of the rhizosphere. Thus, understanding the world as a multifaceted environment gave rise to the concept of a root-like 3D interface. In its form, it refers to the root networks, while in its idea to the Wood Wide Web concept of the underground world of communication. On your way to explore the artworks, you will find yourself passing through its subsequent levels. In the end, you will move around or even inside a root-like labyrinth, traveling through and experiencing our biotech planet. So we envisioned our global human network as the rhizosphere, expanding not only under our feet, but also everywhere around, entwining the earth. It forms a delicate network of symbiosis, diversity, and interdependencies. We connect and interact with this biotech planet, endlessly exchanging information. Our actions influence the network well-being. Our virtual exhibition combines various artistic approaches, practices, and technologies. The visuals you just saw constitute the structure of the first of its component, the original website. Together with augmented reality app, they give a broad perspective of experiencing the featured artworks. By opening the exhibition on the website, you move inside the interface, and by traveling through the scenes, you will explore the artworks. You can control your journey in two different ways. By using bottom menu, you select specific artwork. By moving with the arrows, you can go forward or backward, and then your experience will be linear. The latter option will follow the complete narrative of the exhibition. And now about the augmented reality app. You can get the Art and Science Note application from both Google Play and App Store. Inside the app, our interface visualizing the exhibition's concept is used as a structure to move around it and explore artwork by artwork. Upon arrival to the app, guide yourself through the tutorial to get to know all the functionalities. And then once you enter the augmented reality environment, no matter where you are, it can be a room in your home, it can be a park, an urban surrounding, a street, or a forest, you can begin your journey through the exhibition. You will place the interface in space with the help of the markers and walk around it. 13 nodes inspired by the symbiotic nodes formed by Rhizobium bacteria and plant root systems are all interactive. When approaching them closely, they reveal the artwork each of them holds. You can see the nodes have 4 different colors, created in respect to 4 groups that the artworks were categorized by. Green for hybrid realities, purple for living systems, orange for tracing links, and red for shifting horizons. So let's get back to our presentation. You already heard Dr. Katrina Kankar talking about the Art and Science component in the CHICque project. So Art and Science node is running 2 programs in Artists in Residence project. One being biotechnology from the blue flower by artists Anna Dumitriu and Alex May. And the second one that we are focusing on today, Aftertaste by Jill Scott and Marille Hahne. It constitutes 2 elements: the installation that will integrate the sensations of taste, smell, sight, touch, and hearing as well into an immersive experience. It will present the 24 molecules that are found in chicory root, with the groups of inulins and phenolics being one of them. Jill will later on talk about it in details. And there is a documentary film, Chicory Unpacked, by Marille Hahne, that constitute the second part. So I encourage you to visit the exhibition's website and download our Art and Science Node app. And now, before I give the virtual floor to Matthew de Rode, I would like still have 1 minute of an introduction of an interactive platform that we will be using for tomorrow's evaluation. So if you have a smartphone on you, or if you use the laptop, you can scan the QR code or just click on the link that should be appearing in your chat right now. Over there, you already got a full PDF file with all the links attached to that will be needed during the event. So if you have it, we'll go to our presentations. Can you see it? No, probably not.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
you did.
can.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the presentation. So the question that I wanted to ask everybody is, what is a healthy dessert for you? And actually, we wanted to get back to this question tomorrow after we will be done with our evaluations and reflect on the changes. And if you will, there is a possibility to add 1, 2, or 3 short answers, just one word, so we can see actually interactively what you think about this. And they should come up on the screen while you are answering. Less sugar, light, fruity. Apple. Yes, the thing that came to my mind actually was either fruit or no dessert at all, or maybe this 100% chocolate that you can only eat just a little piece of and never finish the whole bar. Honey glazed fruits, feeling good afterwards. We will keep those answers for tomorrow. I will just wait another 15 seconds and we'll come back to them with a fresh view after the event is finished. Okay, thank you very much. And now I will go back to the initial presentation. Hope you can see it now. And I am giving the virtual floor to Mathieu de Rode from Sensus.
Thank you, Carolina. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And I was watching closely to your answers on the AHA, and I saw indeed less sugar. I saw less fat, but I also fortunately saw tasty, and that is something that Jordi is going to take care of with you tonight. And that is also why we are in business, and also why we were asked to participate in this wonderful project. And as you have already have witnessed, it's a very broad project. Not only the science is investigated thoroughly, but also the art and the communication is investigated. And we are asked to get that business perspective, because Sensus is indeed, next slide please, is a inulin producing company from chicory root. We are one of the leading suppliers, 1 out of 3 I can say, that all located in the region of around Belgium, let's say, where chicory grows. We do that with 500 dedicated farmers, 2 production sites in the Netherlands and 3 sales offices and around 150 employees. And what we do, we process these chicory roots into the 2 products that hopefully all of you have received in a package together with the Chico coffee. We were established in 1995. Next slide, please. Oh. Yeah, next slide, please. And we sell our inulin globally. I mean, more than 50 countries. We have 3 sales offices, 1 in the US, 1 in Roosendaal, and 1 in Kuala Lumpur. And we have an extensive network of business partners. Next slide, please. We do that as part of the Kozen Cooperative. We are a Dutch farmers cooperative, mainly consisting of 9,000 sugar beet farmers. And all our companies have the same aim. We transfer crops, plant-based material into food ingredients, feed, pet food, bio-based, and green energy. You see here the main crops that we have. We transfer sugar beet into sugar with the Kozen Beet Company, potato into various potato products by Avico, the chicory, of course, by us to inulin, and vegetables and fruits that you find in your yogurts as well, but also in your smoothies by SVZ. You see one odd one out, and that is seemingly that is downy, but that is a very important part of our cooperative. Next slide, please. Because as on a farm, nothing goes to waste in our production facilities. Everything that we produce and comes out of the pipe, we reuse. So if we extract the inulin from the chicory root, the spent roots are not wasted, but they are going to downy and they transfer it into cattle feed. The same they do with the spendings from the potato factory, the same thing they do with the sugar beet factory. On top of that, even the waste that cannot be transferred into cattle feed, we transfer into biogas. So Sensus uses 25% of its gas production consumption is made by our own biogas. The sugar beet company, the Gourmet beet company, they are at the moment the biggest biogas deliverant to the Dutch gas grid. So nothing, even the dirt that comes off the roots when we wash them, is reused again to heighten lands that heighten fields that we need again. Nothing in our company is wasted. Next slide, please. So coming back to inulin again, I mean, we as Sensus, we believe that inulin contributes to consumer health because not only it is of a natural origin, it is plant-based, it is of course healthy for you, but most importantly, it should taste great, because I can give you 100 healthy products, but if they don't taste great and if you don't like them, you will not going to eat them. That is unfortunately the fact. If you go to the next slide, inulin has that perfect taste. It is slightly sweet, so it can serve as a sugar replacer, and then you will see the application tonight. But on top of that, it has a lot of functionalities. It contributes to the digestive health, because you do not, and me neither, by the way, we do not digest it, but our gut microbiome, they love it. So it is completely fermented in our gut. It thereby producing short chain fatty acids and supporting the immune system of our body. Of course, it is from natural origin, but because it can replace sugar, not only as a texturizer, not only as a filling, but also slightly sweet, being slightly sweet. So it has a low caloric value and it can replace sugar. It has a great taste and texture. So therefore, inulin, we think inulin is the choice, the ingredient of choice for healthy products. Next slide, please. And in the next presentation, you will see a more physical overview of what I here represent here now scheduling, because what is going to happen? I mean, at this moment, the seeds are, the plants are growing great, because it's in the Netherlands, it's great weather. I mean, we have a lot of rain and a lot of sun, and it is warm. So we call that in Dutch, groeizaam weer, grow some weather. What happens in around September, the roots came, we harvest them. They come into the factory until December, January. We wash them, we slice them. Then we extract them with hot water, nothing else, only hot water. Then all the hot water soluble products come out, not only the inulin, but also the other nutrients, also the terpenes that you will know of. And we have to get them out. So we first have a process to get the minerals out. Then we have a process to get these terpenes out, which might be a bit contradicting within the CHICque process, but mind you, they taste very bitter. So if you want to have a tasty product, tasty inulin, we have to get them out. Then we evaporate the water and we spray dry the inulin, which is then packed and then sent to you for this workshop. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Jo and Rela.
Thank you, Matthew. If you'd like to pose questions to our guests, it may happen in the Q&A session. I will just ask you one quick no and yes question. Can you use inulin or oligofructose in ice cream?
Yes.
Quick answer, yes.
Yes, okay. That's a good news. So with this, I want to head to our next guest, Marille Hahne. We will show a video that she prepared, but Marille, maybe you'd like to say just a few sentences beforehand.
Yeah, thank you and hello everybody. I'm one of the artists in this project, the CHICque project. And as a filmmaker, I'm trying to make a film about chicory. It's called Chicory Unpacked, and it has 3 parts. One is on the wild plant, one on the cultivated plant, and one on the engineered plant. And so you are going to see now pretty much what Matthew described before, because we spent time in with Sensus, at the factory, but also with the farmers. But we also, just to tell you about the wild plant, we are outside of our flat. It's growing here on the on the river, and you will see that in the film. That's how it starts, and it will be 9 minutes. And I hope you enjoy it.
So I am sharing the movie right now. Thank you, Marilla.
She shouldn't have jumped out. She jumped out, I think.
But it is also, the film also will give you a background to Jill's artwork, how she came about to build a big sculpture. So now we go.
Chicory is a wild plant. It is known in Germany as die Wegwarte, or the plant that waits along the European country walkways. We were told that it's native to Europe. And then we found it right on our daily walk in the middle of Zurich on the river. Farmers say that if you plant it in the field, it is much stronger than other crops, and it improves the biodiversity of the soil. But chicory roots also have healthy ingredients for us. Today, farmers' cooperatives like Sensus in Holland are growing chicory for its high-grade fiber and sugar substitute potentials. But it has only been cultivated for the last 25 years. Scientists tell us that chicory contains a type of dietary fiber called inulin. Their research has linked it to several health benefits, such as improving digestive health or helping to control sugar diabetes.
Oh, I'm interested. They're all different sizes, but they're huge.
That is indeed the objective. I mean, we want to have as much mass as possible from an acre of land, because we are making an ingredient out of it. So the more the mass, the more ingredients we get out of the land.
The chicory root is a very robust crop, so it doesn't need much fertilization, doesn't need much pest control. It is slowly growing. That means that certainly at the start, the farmer really has to pay attention to weed control. So this is to facilitate sowing, and this is really the clean seed. And here you see different versions of pillage, which also contains some nutrients that the seed needs for getting out of the ground. So we work with 500 farmers approximately. They sow the seeds from March until late April. And from there on, it's basically their responsibility. The chicory grows until we start the harvest.
In September, we went with Matthew to one of these farms.
I started about 6:30.
Harvesting already, 6:30.
Yeah.
Chicory roots are grown in the Dutch fields and are harvested from September until November.
So when will you be finished? What do you think?
What time? Or
Yeah, what time?
This about 9 or 10 tonight.
You'll be finished.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, it's going to be a long day, huh?
Yeah.
The farmer tells us that he puts the leaves back into the soil. We also learned that chicory leaves help to retain the moisture and feed the good bacteria, fungi, and other naturally occurring organisms in the soil. This results in a natural release of nutrients into their roots.
It has been a good wet season.
Yeah.
If it's a dry season, last year we had a very dry season, then we get very long roots. So then, because they're looking for water.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah.
They're really good sized roots, aren't they?
Yeah, these are good size roots indeed.
Yeah, very good.
The factory will be very happy.
At Sensus, we were surprised how complex it is to extract inulin from the chicory roots. Inulin is the main prebiotic dietary fiber in the chicory root. Here we follow the processes of delivery, sorting, washing, slicing and extraction with hot water and additional purification processes to produce inulin powder or oligofructose syrup.
So they are shoveled into the pit and then brought by a conveyor belt into the factory. First it's checked on metals, then they are washed, and then they are undone from weeds that might still be present, stones, etc. And then they are grated. The roots will then be immersed in warm water, like about 60 centigrades, and then they are brought to our extractor, where inulin is extracted from the roots with water of approximately 70 centigrade. And to have inulin at the end, we need several purification steps to have pure inulin in water. First we start with the demineralization step. So there we get rid of the minerals that are in the plant. Then we have an active carbon step where we get rid of the terpenes. So after this step we have pure inulin in water, which we can taste in the factory.
Yeah. Cheers. Yeah. Tastes good, doesn't it? Now you?
So after all these purification steps,
We're going this way.
then we evaporate the water until a high enough level, and then we spray dry it to yield only the inulin powder, which we package in bags and then can distribute to our customers.
The leftover products and minerals from these processes are not wasted.
After extraction, we did not only extract the inulin, we basically extracted everything that dissolves at 70 centigrade hot water. So also the minerals that are in the plant, also the polyphenols that are in the plant, and of course also the terpenes that are in the plant. So all the water that comes from the factory is treated in a wastewater system. The aerobic part, there it is cleaned and then spilled on the surface water. The anaerobic part is making biogas. So 25% of the gas usage that we have in our plant is our own biogas. The different qualities of inulin that we produce have different qualities in the end products. The longer chain products, they have a use as a texturizer. They provide a mouthfeel that is similar to a fatty taste, so therefore can replace fat. The shorter chains have a slightly sweet taste, and therefore are very well used for sugar replacement. The challenge with our current process is that it is fully optimized for yielding inulin, but it would be much better if I have a process that gets the terpenes out in the most efficient way and the inulin out in the most efficient way.
We learn that since 2019, the CHICque European Union Research Project has been investigating these other health benefits of chicory. By using new breeding plant techniques, they hope to produce medicine from the terpenes in these roots. Aftertaste is an art and science project. It is the result of our Artist-in-Residence Fellowship within the chicory research context. Aftertaste explores the different molecules found in these roots in relation to health, taste, and smell.
Thank you so much, Marilla. At some point in the movie, in the factory, Jill, it sounded like you were guiding Matthew and not the other way around. And with this, I would like to give the floor to you now to guide us through your interactive installation. But now I will have to share another presentation with you to do that. So let's get to it now. And maybe I will try to put it on the full screen and just tell me if it changes. Can you see the second slide now? Okay, so I go back to the first and give Jill the floor.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, I have to say that was because I knew that the filmmaker was in front and that that Matthew couldn't go that way. So I had to say, we have to go this way. Anyway, yes, so I'm going to talk about Aftertaste because it's been about 1.5 years in the making now, and we just had a kind of a presentation of it to the public for the first time, just to see how the public interact with it. It's called Aftertaste, the Molecular Orchestra now. We've put a subtitle on it actually. And so if you go to but basically you can see here some background behind it. I just want to talk a little bit about that. I'm an artist who's been working for about 17 years in an area called neuromedia, and I've changed that now to neuroecomedia. And this means that I'm really interested in this interface between neurobiology, human perception, and the relationship to the natural environment. And these are some of the projects that are existing around. They start out in neurobiology, but the actual content is all about the environment, and particularly in this case, about chicory and about the environment of plant biology. So my methods are about interactive media, working with embodiment, working with mimicry, and everything you can touch. So what we've realized over time in media arts is that the learning curve of touching and manipulating objects in the space increases the why questions from the audience, and it increases the potentials of joining the dots. In other words, making connections is increased by the physical experience of touch. So these are the different works from my past. As you can see, there's 7 works, and this one, 7 works, and this one, the Molecular Orchestra is the last one being produced. So one day I hope to show the whole thing. In these works, it's all these all many times about plants, about the environment, about the way in which we work with plant cultures. Okay, so if you move on to the next slide. So the influences, as I said, are really to try to figure out how I can create a metaphor for the audience to be like air. In other words, if they're air, they would transport molecules from the nose olfaction system to the tongue and backwards and forwards. So they would act like kind of air in the space. And the aim is to allow them to use their own sense of touch to learn about smell, taste, and the benefits of this unique wild crop. And to look at of course, bring in some of the discourses and the residency discourses that I've had within the actual CHIC 2020 Horizon project. So next slide. So the result is a sort of haptic media artwork that uses sound to explore molecular activity. And it uses the model of the olfactory bulbs to identify the molecules. And it projects video onto a large 3D sculpture of the human tongue to identify the molecular families. And this biomimics, if you like, this whole thing biomimics the health benefits of the molecules of the chicory plant. Do you want to move forward? Next slide, please. So this is the sort of background I do in my research in neuroscience. So I look at the odorant molecules, the compound molecules, the way they're transported through the olfactory bulb to the thalamus gland to be recognized by the brain, or in the compound molecules, how the taste buds send signals to the thalamus gland to be recognized again by the brain. But of course, the title aftertaste means leftover taste, which means its aftertaste is normally the taste or the sensation that you have, basically no longer affecting the changes in the brain. So this is quite an interesting title for me to play with. So here you see the tongue, you see all the papillas, you see, in fact, the taste buds. In the second, lower down, you see, in fact, the olfactory bulb and how the odorant molecules come up through the epithelium, go into the olfactory bulb and transport to the brain. And here you see another diagram, the last diagram on the lower right-hand side, or maybe your left, is about how taste and flavor meet in the brain to make a sense of identify, in fact, what we eat. So next slide, please. So this is, in fact, the results. I took a design of the molecule from pollen of inulin under the scanning electron microscope. And that's why this is this shape. It's a sort of flat bottom shape that I 3D printed and then put electronics inside it so that each electronic molecule is like a little computer all networked together. So there's 24 computers in molecules that are all networked together. And then the tongue is also 3D printed in 32 parts and then joined together. Now, all of this material is made out of cornstarch, so it's actually biodegradable. It's not a plastic product. And so this, for me, was also interesting challenge to try and build something out of a material that will eventually maybe disintegrate. So my sort of focus here is embodiment in the scale of the models, and in trying to put the audience into a role of air in relationship between these two olfactory and gustatory systems, and to understand how the molecules work within the human body. Can the next slide, please? So here's this list. Here's my diagram that I worked out with within my residency with the scientists, all about the molecules and how they work. There's only 24 molecules chosen here. Of course, there's many more different molecules within the chicory root, but we chose these ones because of their different health benefits, and the families are very particularly classified in relation to health benefits. And what's interesting about that is that as an audience, you are able to, the task really is to try and match these families. That's your task when you're in the installation. Do you want to move on, please? Mm-hmm. So here we have the way to match these things is through sound, as well as through color and also through identification. So the identification is mostly happening on the olfactory system, and the tongue is giving you much more what happens in the body and the health benefits. And so we have 3 orchestras for identification. One is the instrumental orchestra. Maybe you can play that sound. That's the body orchestra, sorry. Carolina, the first one is the...
So I have to go here, instrumental.
Yeah, a bit louder. Can you make it a little bit louder, please? I think your sound is quite low. Yeah. Okay, so for example, all the terpenes are string instruments. All the inulins are in fact brass instruments. So you have different groups of the orchestra when you're playing with the molecules. The second identification is the body orchestra. Maybe you can play that, please. So here you have all the sounds of the body. So when you put the object in the tongue, it's only the body sound you hear of all the sounds of the gut, almost the sounds you would hear if you were in the womb of a mother and being a baby and listening. And then the natural family orchestra is much more of the outdoor of the farm, the actual farm situation, and different identifications in the farm. So there you see the families that I'm interested in identifying here in the Aftertaste project. The terpenes, the phenolics, the inulins are only represented in the AR version, but here in the live big version, you also have nutrients and minerals. So together they stimulate our body functions, these molecules. They maintain the health of our organs. And of course, I'm interested in the organs of taste, smell, sight, and hearing. So they also maintain these organs. Can you move on to the next slide, please? I'm just going to play now some examples of what happens when you put the molecules in the tongue. So you get these kinds of information. So you are combining like body orchestra with the natural orchestra outside in relation to the terpenes. So now,
the second one.
Thank you. So now you are in the phenolics, and you can see on that animation that we have the free radicals, and phenolics being an antioxidant are changing some of their interior cells with that causing exchanges to happen and benefits. Here you have last one based on inulin. You have the fiber from the intestine, and long chain. So that gives you an idea of the whole project. Of course, there's a film that shows a little bit more of the actual physical interaction, but I think we can see that another time.
Thank you so much, Jill. You can also see in the links inside the chat where you will be directed to the Aftertaste projects on the website's exhibition. And I will now, with no further ado, give the voice to Jordi. Let me get back to our presentation here. Yes. The floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Joanna, for your introduction. Thank you, Jill, for inviting us to this amazing project, the CHICque project. And thank you, Matthew, for your really interesting introduction to inulin and oligofructose. We know very much how difficult it is to produce this ingredient, and we appreciate because we really need in pastry in order to create healthier pastry. Just to make a small introduction, I want to explain to you why we discovered this ingredient, and this is because 10 years ago we started to try to create healthier pastry. And at the beginning was a really challenging process because when you start to reduce sugars that are mainly the bad ingredients that we have in pastry, and you start to reduce saturated fat, we have a problem is that we introduce a lot of water to the recipes in general, and we lose the stability. And at the beginning, the first 5 years working on this project was really difficult for this because we started to remove these sugars and fats, and you became crazy because you cannot find a way to fix your recipes. And one day was a really important day for us. We discovered the inulin, the chicory root, the inulin, and the oligofructose. And when we started to work with these two ingredients, it was amazing because we discovered the way to remove sugar, to remove fats to the recipes, but keeping a really interesting textures and more health benefits in our recipes. No, the problem that we have in pastry in general is that we are using a lot of refining sugar in general and saturated fats, and we are working on the way to try to reduce or remove, when it's possible, this kind of ingredients in our pastry. And we explain this in our school. And just I want to introduce these two desserts that we prepared with our team. If you can move to the first slide, the chocolate souffle. In that recipe here, the goal was to create a really light texture like a souffle. We call fake souffle because we created a presentation that is a kind of souffle, but is not directly a souffle, because we can eat directly from the fridge. We can eat directly, and it's a really light texture with a really high notes of cocoa, of cacao, and this is what was interesting here. And one of the problems that we can find when we eat chocolate is that all the white milk and dark chocolates contain sugar, and in that recipe what we did was to remove this sugar, and we are working just with cocoa mass. We have lecithin in order to create a perfect emulsification. We are working with water because like that we have a clean taste of the cocoa paste that we are using on the recipe. And finally, we add a meringue with pasteurized egg whites or fresh egg whites with oligofructose. And what is doing oligofructose on the recipe? Oligofructose gives us a little bit of sweetness. It's like half sweetness of the sugar, more or less, and this oligofructose that we have on the recipe give us sweetness and give us body to the meringue in order to mix all the ingredients and have a really perfect texture, like you can see on the screen, on the picture. And we have a really light chocolate mousse with a really high notes of cocoa. And just you will try the recipe between today and tomorrow, and you will see. And then we have the next slide, please. The lemon pie. We created another classic recipe that is the lemon pie. In general, lemon pie contains a lot of sugar because we need sugar for the structure. And here in that recipe, we have started to work with a sable dough. It's a crunchy texture that we have on the base, that we are working with different ingredients. But here we have also oligofructose, and we are working with oligofructose and coconut sugar in order to have also a little bit more sweetness and a little bit the crunchy that gives us coconut sugar. And then we have lemon creamy. We created a lemon creamy with agar-agar, with water. We are not working with eggs in that recipe because eggs give us a lot of eggy taste. And for us, it's not interesting. Here in that lemon pie, we have a really clean taste of lemon. That is something that for me is the most important thing. And we are working with oligofructose in order to have this sweetness that we need on that recipe. And also we are working with coconut oil, and like that, this recipe is lactose free. And finally, we have a meringue on top, the classic meringue for lemon pie. And the classic meringues that we use in pastry contains a lot of sugar. We can think in Italian meringue that contains more or less 3 parts of sugar, 1 part of egg whites, more or less. And it's a really aggressive recipe for the health because we have a lot of sugar inside. And here we created a really stable recipe with just egg whites, oligofructose for the sweetness, inulin for the body that we need on the recipe, because the difference for a structure between oligofructose and inulin is that oligofructose has less water catchment capacity and give us sweetness on the recipe, and inulin has a high water catchment capacity and give us body, but give us not too much sweetness. No? And like that, we balance this recipe where we have egg whites, oligofructose, inulin, and lemon zest at the end. And the goal here was to reduce maximum or to remove the sugar. Here we are working only with coconut sugar on the base, but we have a really low quantity of sugar. And I think that's all for my part. I don't know, Adriana, if you want to introduce something.
No, I think all the participants are probably eager to start. So I'm not sure, Carolina, how do we proceed from now?
Okay. So yes, thank you very much for this introduction to the two recipes. We will now head to the Let's Cook part, which is not less exciting than the first part that we just finished. And in the PDF file that you will find in the chat at the very beginning, but also the links that were just put inside chat right now. So at the very end, you will find the links to video instructions prepared by Jordi and Adriana. They link to both of the dessert, one to chocolate souffle and the other one to the lemon pie. And also you will find there the directive link to both of the recipes that you can download. So just look at the chat, and we want, of course, I am also showing those links right now. You can move forward, work at your own pace, and we will be here for the whole hour to present, to talk to you and answer any of your questions, and to make suggestions or advices. And of course, you can choose one of the recipes, but the big goal is to prepare both of them. And you will be able to speak up in 3 different ways. So you can just unmute yourself and pose your questions right away. You can also put your questions into the chat inside the Zoom. And you can also go back to the presentation with AHA slides, where I will just now move it. Sorry, to the possibility of asking the questions. So there are 3 ways to dig into this part. And we would also be grateful if during your efforts to cook and to prepare the desserts, you took a picture of yourself while cooking, or maybe of the recipes. And with the link that you are seeing right now, and that will come up in also in the chat box very soon, you will get a link to this mood board. There, when you go there, you can upload the photos that you want to share with us, and then you click to save and publish. And tomorrow we'll gather all the photos and we will look at them. So I will now stop sharing, and we shall begin the cooking. So if you have any of the first questions, you can pose them. But if not, I will actually pose a question on my own. And the first one would be to Jordi and to Adriana. So the question is, because unfortunately we've got one information about a person who unfortunately did not receive their samples. We were able to advise on what can be purchased and substitute the inulin and oligofructose, or bought instead. So my question to you is, what happens if you do not have oligofructose, which is very difficult to buy? So could you please us explain again the difference between inulin and oligofructose? So Frutafrit IQ that we have as inulin, and Frutalose SFP as oligofructose, in terms of their use inside the recipes, and how can we possibly substitute the oligofructose? And we know that it's not a simple way and one answer. It's not possible to just put another sweetener, right?
Yes. Just to explain that pastry is quite difficult. In order to balance a recipe, we have to understand perfectly all the parameters that brings us to a perfect texture and perfect balance on the recipes. And the way to substitute this kind of ingredients is quite difficult, because we work in a holistic concept. No? That means that we are thinking in a lot of aspects on the recipe, but a way simple to translate this oligofructose in another ingredient, can be a sugar, like, for example, coconut sugar. Now, what is the difference between sugar and oligofructose? Oligofructose is half of sweet than sugar. That means than in one recipe we have, for example, in the chocolate souffle, we have 125 grams of oligofructose. Just with the half part, 62 grams of coconut sugar, we will have exactly the same sweetness. But what happened here? The problem will be that we will need the 262 grams in order to have body on the structure. No, that means that in some recipes like this one, for example, pasteurized egg whites, we can work with coconut sugar instead of oligofructose. The only thing is that we're on the final recipe, what I propose to you is to work just with 125 grams of coconut sugar. And the difference in that recipe will be that will be a little bit more sweet. Here we have something that is interesting, that we have cocoa mass that is bitter. And this bitterness is going to help us to introduce to balance the sweetness of the recipe, even if we are using coconut sugar on the recipe. And also can be interesting to use the coffee, the CHICque coffee. This can be interesting to introduce a little bit on the recipe in order to reduce the sweetness that we are increasing with this coconut sugar. What will be the difference when we prepare this meringue with coconut sugar? We have to introduce the coconut sugar at the end. We whisk the whites. When we have really soft peaks, really strong, we start to introduce this coconut sugar little by little. And once the coconut sugar is completely melted, that we can see that there is no grains of coconut sugar, we can introduce the mix, the part of the emulsification with the meringue and mix all together all the ingredients. And then in the other recipes, for example, on the meringue, where we have oligofructose and inulin, to find inulin in general on the market is really simple. It's just, I think in Spain is really simple, and I think in Europe it's really easy to find inulin in a lot of shops. The problem here will be to substitute oligofructose. Here I propose to you to work oligofructose instead of oligofructose, to use sugar, because sugar is going to give us the sweetness that we need. It's going to give us the body that we need. But we are using inulin on the recipe. That means that the inulin, this fiber, is going to give us a capacity that doesn't have other ingredients. That is, the fibers give us the capacity to reduce the glucose absorption of the sugars, to decrease the glycemic index, and this is going to balance the situation. That means that we can work on the meringue with 200 grams of pasteurized egg whites. We can work with 65 grams of sugar that is going to give us sweetness. Here I recommend to you to use white sugar if you want a white meringue, and if it doesn't matter for you, you can use coconut sugar. It will work perfectly also on that recipe. And then inulin, that is going to give us body. And in the other recipes that we have on the lemon pie, we have the sable dough. Here we have oligofructose, but we can, on the sable dough, we can substitute the 50 grams of oligofructose for coconut sugar. Will be not problems on that recipe. And then on the lemon creamy, we have the same situation than on the meringue. Here we have oligofructose. If we want to give a white yellow color on the cream, we can use directly white sugar, but instead here in that recipe will be not problem if we use the half part of the 100 grams. That means that we can remove 50 grams of oligofructose and use only 50 grams, 50, 60 grams of sugar, and this can be white sugar or coconut sugar, and the recipe will work perfectly. And that's it. I think that here, and for understand the difference between inulin and oligofructose is something that we explain in all our courses that we do in our pastry school, is that in general, when we need to replace fat on a recipe, we are going to use inulin, and inulin is going to give us the capacity to replace a little bit the fatty sensation, the creaminess, and doesn't give us too much sweetness on the recipe. And the thing is that we have to think that inulin has a high capacity to catch the water and give us texture on the recipes. And then we have another ingredient that comes from the inulin, that is oligofructose, that has less water catchment capacity because ¿cómo se llama? Las cadenas. Sorry, the chains that we have are smaller and has less capacity to catch the water, but we have more sweetness. That means that oligofructose has half sweetness of the sugar, and inulin has only 10% of the sweetness that we can have in sugar. Okay, that means that when we need to replace fats on the recipe and we need body, we can use inulin. When we need to replace sugars on the recipe, for example, and we want to keep a little bit of sweetness, it's better to use oligofructose.
Thank you so much. So there was a question from Miquel Vicente from Public University of Navarra asking about the viability, availability of the products. And I think you, Jordi, already actually answered the inulin. Either if it's derived from chicory or other plants, it is really easily available in the stores. While in fact, we have to substitute the oligofructose, which is a bit harder to obtain, but we can do it with sugar. And what we aimed at with this workshop is to get the most healthy dessert possible. That is why you obtained, hopefully most of you obtained those samples. So if somebody was still listening and not going to the kitchen to cook, I advise that we begin the cooking, and of course you can post the detailed questions here. I think we should leave people some time before we also have some detailed questions for now, and we will be waiting for you, and you can also speak up. If somebody of our team also wants to add something, you're welcome.
I would suggest that before everybody is having the hands full of flour and so forth, we can maybe see all together this fantastic videos that prepared by Jordi and Adriana. They are short ones for all who doesn't have this cooking talents. What we are talking here. I don't know, Karina, do you have that on your screen?
Yeah, I can share,
Okay.
but I was thinking that having them separately, everybody will share, will be following them with their own pace, but maybe we can share one of them with the chocolate mousse.
To encourage you, because it's really so good.
But don't be afraid and start cooking.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jordi Bordas, World Pastry Champion, and I'm happy to be part of the Let's Eat CHIC project. I have been working with chicory fiber for some years now, and I teach other pastry chefs and home cooks to use this amazing ingredient to sweeten their recipes. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make two simple desserts with chicory root fiber, inulin and oligofructose. The dessert I'm going to show you first is a chocolate soufflé. I say soufflé because it looks like a soufflé, but it's actually a sugarless chocolate mousse sweetened with chicory root fiber, oligofructose in this case. The mousse is made with 100% chocolate, cocoa mass, and water, which gives us an incredible light and clean taste. The meringue made with egg whites and oligofructose makes it airy and fluffy, just like any chocolate mousse needs to be. It's simple and delicious, and it only contains 5 ingredients. Let's get started. now we are going to prepare the fake soufflé. In that recipe, we have basically a chocolate mousse. We have 100% chocolate without sugar, lecithin, water, egg whites, and oligofructose. In that recipe, we are going to start melting the 100% chocolate until 45 degrees. Once the chocolate is completely melted, we are going to add water and lecithin, and we are going to emulsify with the hand blender during 1 minute. Once we have this part of the preparation that is called emulsification, we are going to prepare the meringue. For the meringue, we are going to whisk the egg whites during approximately 6-7 minutes at 30 degrees. And we are going to add the oligofructose. Once we add the oligofructose, we are going to whisk 3-4 minutes more. That means that in total, we are going to whisk around 12 minutes. Once we have the meringue, we have to check that its temperature is at 30 degrees, and we need the emulsion at 45 degrees. We are going to mix both preparations. Once we have the emulsion ready, we are going to whisk the egg whites during 6 minutes. At this point, we are going to add the oligofructose and we are going to whisk more or less 6-7 minutes more. All this process we have to do at 30 degrees. For this, we are going to use a heating gun in order to heat up the egg whites and the oligofructose. To put a strip of acetate or plastic above 1 centimeter of the edge of the ramekin. Now the chocolate soufflé is ready. We are going to put it in the fridge a minimum of 4 hours, and then we are going to freeze it during 10-20 minutes in order to remove the acetate. And finally, we are going to sprinkle with cacao powder. The chocolate soufflé is ready. Try it and let us know what you think.
So that was chocolate souffle. Maybe we will show the second movie as well, but I would like to ask just a few questions to Adriana regarding this recipe, because maybe it's better to ask the questions now before we head on to the second one. So my first question to you would be, what actually is the role of the lecithin powder inside this recipe?
Okay, can you hear me well? Because we changed a little bit location, just to sit down a little bit more comfortably while you're probably starting cooking. So just like Jordi said, the lecithin has a very important role. When we usually make a chocolate souffle, we don't use any emulsifier because most chocolate souffles or chocolate mousses actually are made with cream. So in the cream, you have the naturally occurring emulsifier, the milk proteins. So you never think about the emulsion and how fat molecules with water molecules repel each other. So you actually need the emulsifier to bind fat and water together. So when you want to make a healthy dessert, like a healthier dessert with a water base, which is what Jordi is always trying to make while working with chocolate, to maximize and really give give protagonism to the chocolate flavor. So we're using water, but water and chocolate will never mix. So actually you need the lecithin, or you would need egg yolks that are also sometimes used right in chocolate mousses, or you need another ingredient with emulsifying capacity. And speaking of fibers, since we are in the fiber world, let's say, there's also a new ingredient that we are using, but that is, and hopefully in the future will be as easily available as inulin, meaning the citrus fiber, which has great emulsifying capacities. And we are already in the pastry world, we are already using it for creating emulsions of water and chocolate, for example.
Okay, thank you very much. And the video seems very, very easy. It is, I think, very important to have a lot of little balls to help you find yourself among the recipes. And my question to you, because when I saw the video for the first time, I was a little bit worried when I saw the heating gun. Because you have to heat the eggs and oligofructose to 30 degrees, if I remember correctly. And how can you do it without a heat gun?
Yes, so that's true that we try to adapt our recipe as much to home cooks as possible, but there are some moments where we maybe still left it at a semi-professional level. You actually heat the egg whites in pastry in order to get better volume. Like it's just like tested, let's say, in laboratories and like by trial and error. That the best volume you get using this quantity of egg whites in this bowl of a standing mixer and at this temperature, right? So in order to have this like airy texture, like the best aeration possible, we heat the egg whites to around 30 degrees. If it's 28, it doesn't, or 32, it's still okay. If you don't have a heat gun, obviously it's not a product that it's easily that you would have at hand in your kitchens. You can either put the egg whites in a microwave for a moment, or I would suggest a water bath, maybe, because in a microwave, the problem might be that just with 5 or 10 seconds, if the protein denatures, you will see white pieces, right, of egg whites. It will not beat well. You will turn your egg white into like a cooked egg or like an egg white omelet. Yeah. So instead of microwave, if you can put the microwave at the lowest settings and just heat it 10 seconds or 20 seconds just to try, it's actually it's gonna work very well. But if not, then you can also make like a water bath, not a boiling temperature, but let's say a 70 or 80 degrees.
And it also takes just a moment to heat up until those 30 degrees, right? It's not that you would cook them in this water bath for a minute.
No, no, and you have to think the body temperature is 37 degrees. So actually you can even check it with your hand, right? Like just touching the bowl, like if it feels more or less, but actually a little bit less hot or less warm than your body, then you would definitely had something around 30 degrees.
Okay, and you have to also prepare the meringue in the lemon pie recipe. Would this heating up for you work the same way over there?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Just the same.
Okay, we'll go to the video just a few more questions. There is also this moment in the recipe that you have to, at the very end, in order to get rid of those acetate strip, you have to put the chocolate souffle into a freezer for 10 up to 20 minutes, right? So I guess it's just for not to, like, let's say, bruise the surface, the sides of the dessert. And if our evaluation, because we will be tasting our desserts tomorrow during the evaluation, after the main part of the Congress is finished. So from 5:30, we'll be evaluating it. So would it be better to put the ready-made dessert to the freezer today, get rid of the acetate strips, and then keep them in the fridge until tomorrow, or do this freezer part just before the event tomorrow?
The freezing is really just to remove the acetate in the cleanest possible way. So you can do it today. If you manage to do it, to do everything today, that's perfect. And just keep the souffle in the fridge. Actually, it holds pretty well. We have done tests and trials, and the recipe can even stay in the fridge 2-3 days without, it doesn't contain, you have to think it doesn't contain egg yolks, the egg whites. If you use pasteurized egg whites, like there's no health risk, let's say. So 2-3 days, and the texture was still holding up beautifully. Of course, sometimes with fiber it happens, that the fiber that the cocoa mass has, right, 100% chocolate as well as oligofructose. So it sometimes like keeps draining water, right, like keeps attracting and capturing some free water of the recipe. So sometimes, let's say, it gets a little more contracted or changes shape a little bit on the second date, but there's no possibility of anything happen overnight. So from here today to tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds great. And actually, this was my last question regarding the chocolate souffle. And there's one question that Eniko Lornic Besenei, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrongly, asked where you can find pasteurized egg whites.
Well, actually, in many countries, you can find them in big supermarkets. I think even supermarkets like Carrefour, or in Spain, it's actually Mercadona. You can, I don't know where exactly do you live, but you should try a big chain, because nowadays they do introduce like those, in a carton, like you can buy them in a carton, like you would buy milk or any other whipping cream, right? So if you try pasteurized egg whites or pasteurized egg yolks, it's actually an ingredient that is being sold more and more. And if you don't have pasteurized egg whites, it's still okay. You can use fresh egg whites the way you would do making a normal meringue or a home cooked recipe with meringue at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. So I will now present the second movie. If somebody will later have the question regarding chocolate souffle, of course you can pose it. And I will now share the second film. Lemon Pie.
Hello, I'm Jordi Bordas, World Pastry Champion, and I'm happy to be part of the Let's Eat CHIC project. I have been working with chicory fiber for some years now, and I teach other pastry chefs and home cooks to use this amazing ingredient to sweeten their recipes. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a lemon pie. another classic dessert made with pâte sablé, lemon cream, and Italian meringue. In our version of the lemon pie, we not only cut down on sugar, but also eliminated the egg yolks from the lemon cream in order to enhance the lemon flavor. And instead of making a classic Italian meringue with sugar syrup, we made a light meringue with inulin and oligofructose. It is a healthier, lighter, and in our opinion, tastier version of the classic lemon pie. So let's get to work. We are going to prepare the sablé for the lemon pie, and now here we have many different ingredients. We have oligofructose, we have egg yolks, we have coconut sugar, water, whole rice flour, salt, almond flour, coconut oil, and sunflower oil. On the first part, we are going to mix the egg yolks, water, coconut sugar, and oligofructose. And this process we are going to use for dissolve perfectly the oligofructose and coconut sugar with the water that we have on the recipe and on the egg yolks. Once we have the oligofructose and coconut sugar perfectly hydrated, that the mix is completely fine and we don't have any grains from coconut sugar, we are going to add all the ingredients and we are going to mix all of them. Already mixed the water, the egg yolks, the oligofructose and the coconut sugar, and we are going to wait 10 minutes in order to completely dissolve the sugars. Now we are going to check if the sugars are completely dissolved. For this we are going to use a spoon, and we need just to check that we don't have any grains of sugar on the spoon. Now we are going to mix all the rest of the ingredients in the mixer. Now the dough is ready and we are going to spread between these two baking paper sheets. Spread the sablé dough between two baking papers, and like that we avoid the sablé dough sticking to the table. Now we are going to freeze it and then we are going to form the tart. Now the sablé dough is already frozen and we are going to remove the baking paper and we are going to cut a line of sablé. To form the tart correctly, we need to have the dough frozen, but at the same time flexible. And like that, we can be sure that the dough is going to adjust to the ring. Next, we are going to cut 2 circles of dough and we are going to put it inside of the ring of the tart. a fork we punch holes in the base of the tart. Now the tart is ready and we are going to bake it at 150 degrees during approximately 10 minutes. Now we are going to prepare the lemon cream. In that recipe we have water, we have lemon juice, agar-agar, cornstarch, oligofructose, coconut oil, lecithin powder and lemon zest. On the first part of the recipe we are going to mix the oligofructose with the cornstarch and agar-agar, and like that we are going to avoid lumps with the cornstarch. Once we have this part that is already mixed, we are going to heat water and lemon juice, and we are going to add all these three ingredients, agar-agar, cornstarch and oligofructose, and we are going to bring until 85 degrees approximately, or until it thickens. Once we have the first part of the recipe that is already thickened, we are going to emulsify with the coconut oil and lecithin powder. The last step will be cool down the cream until 40 degrees, and we are going to mix with the lemon zest. Already mixed during 1 minute the lemon cream, then we cool down at 40 degrees, and finally we are going to add the lemon zest. Now the lemon cream is ready and we are going to cool down in the fridge until it sets completely. Now the lemon cream is already set in the fridge and we are going to blend it. I have poured the lemon cream on the sablé dough, and now we are going to put it another time in the fridge in order to set perfectly the lemon cream. Now we are going to prepare the meringue for the lemon tart. In that recipe we have egg whites, oligofructose, inulin and lemon zest. This recipe is really interesting because we are going to remove all the white sugar that we have in general in this kind of recipes, and we are going to use oligofructose. Oligofructose is going to give us sweetness on the meringue, and then we are going to add inulin, and inulin is going to give us enough body in order to pipe correctly the meringue on top of the lemon tart. For the process in this meringue, we are going to whisk the egg whites during approximately 5-6 minutes until we have soft peaks. Then we are going to add oligofructose and inulin. We are going to whisk until 10 minutes in total, and finally we are going to add the lemon zest. During the whisking process, we are going to heat the egg whites at 30 degrees. We can use the heat gun or we can heat the egg whites in the microwave. Once we have the meringue, we put on top of the lemon cream, and then we are going to caramelize it with a blowtorch. Our lemon pie is ready. Let's enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are now done with the second recipe. The first thought that came to my mind when I was looking at this video was, wow, I do not have a freezer to put such a big dough inside. But I guess it is easy. You can probably cut a bit and then join the elements, right?
Yes, of course, many times, like, cooking at home, you have to readjust some things, like, for example, also know your oven very well because the temperatures might be different, and also keeping in mind that if you have a very full freezer, probably the time that we gave you to keep the souffle right, to take down, the acetate strip, actually will be double or triple, because if there's a lot of things in your freezer, it will actually mean that the temperature is not -18 but maybe -12, so it takes longer time to actually like freeze. So obviously you just need to make little adjustments, and we use big, right, like we roll out the dough like on a big baking tray, but you can use smaller trays and adjust it to the space that you have available and to the tart ring that you have available.
Mm-hmm. And there was one part about the tart that when Jordi said that we should wait until all the sugars dissolve. What happens if they don't and we follow?
So actually, it's really important, and it's really crucial while making meringues, especially, but also in case of some doughs as well. But let me explain the importance using the meringue example. So sometimes, for example, while making healthy desserts, we try to use erythritol, for example, or any kind of, or maybe even, yes, we try to use inulin or oligofructose. And the thing is, oligofructose actually has an amazing solubility. Matthew can surely back me up on that one. But for example, erythritol, it can be a healthy ingredient for people who have diabetes, but it has very low solubility. So the problem is we make a meringue and if we don't give it time or temperature for the sugars to dissolve, we will always end up with grainy texture with sugar crystals inside. So in this case, it's also just not to have those sugar crystals later, because coconut sugar also takes like a longer time to dissolve. It's not as easily because of the fiber, of pieces of fiber it contains, because of the molasses it contains. So it's not the same as saccharose, right? As sucrose, like to dissolve it, as easy to dissolve it. And sometimes just the granulometry is also bigger, right? The grains are bigger. So just dissolving it well just helps us make sure that later we don't have the texture that is unpleasant in any way.
Mm-hmm. And if you put the dough into the freezer, how long on average you have to hold it there?
I would say in our case, obviously we use big, like, let's say industrial or like pastry specific freezers, so like, or even blast chillers. So we can put it in a blast chiller for 5 or 10 minutes and it's done. But in case of a home freezer, I would keep it for 20 to 30 minutes, or just to touch it and make sure that it's really that it's hard enough. Then when we take it out and start cut, because obviously because of the coconut oil, the dough at room temperature, especially that we're talking, we're in summer already. Yes. So the temperature in your kitchens, if it's above 24 degrees, the coconut oil starts, right? The fatty acids in coconut oil starts to melt.
Yes.
So you have to really work fast with it. So that's why if it's too frozen, obviously when you start cutting and putting it, it will break. But you just to find this perfect, this sweet spot in between frozen and melted, so that you can put it inside your tart ring and then you can put it again in there.
And it will not deformate.
Exactly.
Okay. So one more question, because you are using the tart circles of 14.5 centimeters diameters, which was also put to the ingredient list. But what would happen if I, for example, would use a 20 diameter circle?
Nothing, just probably you would have to adjust the quantities, right, of your recipe. If you would make 1 tart, nothing. But if you make 2, maybe you wouldn't have enough to fill enough creamy to fill both of them. Meringue probably would be enough. But the quantity of the creamy was really calculated for those 2 tarts, right? And that's it. So if you have a bigger tart, you just adjust right to the dimensions that you have, and then you can measure the quantity, right? You can see until which point, which height to put the creamy, and then you might just do 1, and you might have a little bit of creamy left over, for example, right? But that's not a problem. I would say that in case if you have a really big tart, like 30 centimeters of diameter, because you also have such molds, then you would definitely have to adjust the baking time a little bit, because it might cook a bit slower. And just be careful also manipulating the tart, because with all the creamy and the meringue on top, right, a big, let's say a bigger tart might be a little more fragile, and just be careful not to for it not to break.
So I am happy to say that Julie Bush, please correct me if the
Congratulations.
Name, yeah, she.
Hi, it's Julie Bush. Yes,
Julie Bush. Yeah. So you made the first dessert already.
Well, hi, hello. Yes, I made one of them. I don't think I will have the time to make the other one, and I probably will leave them in the fridge because I am unsure of my acetate roll skills. So I just won't move them. But I tried the CHICque coffee and it was great. I'm actually drinking chicory every day, working on chicory also. So that's why I was interested in the workshop. And I really loved the cooking experience and also the art presentation. I will make sure to watch the art exhibits later on and show to friends.
That's great to hear. Thank you for this. And it would be great if we could see some photos that you made during the preparations on the mood board for tomorrow.
Once they're more solid and safe, which they are not at the time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking up. And look at Jill. Jill, can you speak up to show yourself on a big screen?
Well, here's our first one.
I don't actually see the ramekins. Are they black? Or is it all in plastic?
No, it's a dark.
It's a dark one. Yeah, I can see.
Wow, now we can see it much better. It's a really nice first try, Jill. I really think you nailed it.
The problem is that the inulin, I left it out in the room, just in a jar, and it went lumpy. That we got a crust on it, and then the crust wouldn't go. I had to use the part of the crust. That's what humid. It's very humid, and the inulin got a total crust on it. Because it was
you are aware that I do not like the word problem in inulin in one sentence, Sergio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. But why is it so sensitive to air? Is it?
It is not sensitive to air, but indeed you say it is very humid, and indeed it is sensitive, and that Jordi also mentioned it in its introduction. That is also a great ingredient to let's say for hydration of your products.
Okay.
And this is exactly what happens. So it captures indeed the humidity from the air. So if it is very humid today, then it will just form a little crust on the top layer. But if you then stir it, it is loose again.
Okay. So basically, that's why I've got some lumps in my souffle.
But I'm sure it will still taste super delicious.
Well, I prepared everything in the bowls first, which you have to do. And then just quit. But now it took 20 minutes to make the souffle.
Are you up to making the lemon pie as well?
Yeah, we're going to do that too.
Oh, great.
Jill, but I think also your example is great for anyone who hasn't started cooking yet, because that's true. Just what Matthew said, right? There's this property of inulin or oligofructose that's called hygroscopicity, or like the capacity, right, to absorb moisture or capture water. And for this reason, it's true for all of you who will be taking time to weigh the ingredients or maybe prepare the material. You can what we do is always put film on top of the bowl, right? Like just, you can think, it's the same thing that sometimes it's advised in pastry books about egg yolks, because egg yolks, if you just leave them, right, or egg yolks with sugar, they might actually start like a little bit crystallizing, let's say, like changing the texture. So you sometimes advise it to cover it, right, so that there's no crust on top. So just cover it with film, and just use it, like uncover it at the moment that you use. So it's actually a great,
We uncovered it because it's humid here today, and I think basically it just picked up all the humidity and just went on the top like a whole crust. But we're going to now, I better go back because my egg yolks are sitting there also.
Maybe cover it.
I think I better cover it.
So I have a question which is not maybe practical, but seeing all these masterpieces, I would like to ask you how long you are preparing one recipe, because it is so much experiments, so many experiments behind, so much knowledge. So how long it takes to create such a masterpiece?
It'd be anything from, because it's tests and trials, right? And the creative process of Jordi can be really creative. So it means lots of steps involved, and like changing textures and flavors and adjusting the sweetness and adjusting the contrast of textures. So so actually we're pretty happy with the chocolate souffle, because it was one of the recipes I think that worked pretty fast, and we really love it. It's ultimately one of our favorite, let's say, simplest recipes. And then the lemon pie actually took longer time because we were not happy with acidity or sweetness or this or this. So there have been adjustment made, right? And we also wanted to make sure it's for let's say for home cooks. So we had to replace some technical pastry ingredients for ingredients that are easier to obtain, like cornstarch or agar-agar, which still can be a bit problematic, although nowadays I think it's in most of the health stores.
Mm-hmm. So for the masters, it takes like 1 month, 1 week, 1 year?
Well, I would say that every excellent recipe would take from several weeks to really like decide, okay, this is the final version, because from each component, right? So chocolate souffle is only one recipe, so it's much easier. So that one was developed within 1 or 2 weeks. But then we have the lemon pie, which has 3 components, right? Like 3 recipes. So we were changing each of them. So the meringue, for example, we were developing for our online course like half a year ago, and then we said like, oh, so we could use this one, but still readjusting some things, right? Changing the creamy, making it with egg yolks, without egg yolks. So that one probably took a bit longer, 3 to 4 weeks. And then there are whole elaborations, like really professional, right? Like more professional pastry with elaborate decorations that might take a month or even more before we set on the final look, on the final texture, taste, and everything. But just to let all of you know that you are cooking, that actually we are really, really happy with both of these recipes, and they will, some versions of them, not exactly the version that we are preparing today, because we also normally we make different versions, right? The professional version or amateur, a home cook version, etc., and for different purposes. But actually, the lemon pie will make. We were so happy with the result after after a lot of work and trials, that it will make that it will appear in the upcoming book of Jordi that is coming out, and that is for home cooks.
Okay, if you can share the link to the information with this, I think
yes,
everybody will be happy to dive into it.
Of course.
And could you
well, if you keep checking, I will just post here now our website, and I think tomorrow at noon we will have the information. I don't know, it didn't make the link. Like I'm not sure, Carolina, if you can help me just turning it into a link.
Let me see if
maybe I can try.
But you can just keep checking the website, and tomorrow at noon we will have the information available, and it's a book on healthy desserts for home cooks actually. And in the book there's a lot of inulin recipes, or like recipes that use inulin and other healthy ingredients. So for all the home cooks out here who are interested in this type of cooking, so just an idea.
I want another question, because I guess testing all this cooking, you have to have a very refined taste. And so how to keep the senses so sensitive, I'd say sensitive, but that how to make them kind of more sensitive. Do you have some tricks?
You mean how to keep the senses sharp, so that you can
sharp,
yes, like so that you can better detect the flavor or the well, actually, there's one thing that not many people think of, but it's really important. Sometimes we get surprised because there's still many chefs, or like savory chefs or pastry chefs, that smoke. But smoking is one of the things that actually really messes up your taste perception, right? Your flavor perception. So, for example, one thing is not to smoke, not to have this influence. Also, eating excessive amounts of sugar. Actually, surprisingly enough, many pastry chefs eat little sugar, because if you eat a lot of sugar, you don't perceive the sweet taste in the same way. So you have no. It's really hard to find the balance. You can go overboard very easily. The same thing happens if you, let's say, drink too much coffee or too much of other ingredients. That's why we always taste. We always give our students, our pastry students that are coming to our school, we make the buffet degustation. And at that time, we only serve them water, no coffee, no tea, because we, right, that's right, the tomorrow's exercise is actually also like this designed, right, to see how the flavor perception can change depending on what you, how you combine, right, let's say coffee and the dessert. So this is very true. And so if you really want to keep your let's say your degustation as clean, obviously it will always be subjective because it will depend also on your diet and on many other factors, right? Like whether you perceive something as sweeter, more acidic. There are people who have low tolerance to acidity, so they actually start producing lots of saliva on contact with some acid ingredients, and so they perceive everything like much more acid. There are people who don't tolerate let's say, or have low tolerance to bitter taste. So obviously, like there's no standard in terms of tasting or taste perception, but just a very simple, like plain advice would be to drink water with, and not to have those other like really taste, let's say, distortions or influencers like tobacco, like coffee or other strong ingredients.
Thank you. We'll soon be finishing, but let me pose you one more question regarding the preparation of the recipes and the lemon pie. Actually, what if I don't have this gun to caramelize the meringue? Is it very, very bad?
No, we were thinking about it, but it's a little bit like with crème brûlée. When we want to make a crème brûlée, the key is to have this like beautiful caramelized crust, right? So the same thing happens with Italian meringue. We want the Italian meringue always to be to have this right nice caramelized color. Obviously, we can try put it in the oven. We did it once. It's much harder to control, and the heat doesn't come from the sides. And then if it's kept, if we just put it for a moment at kind of higher temperature and take it out, maybe it will give some browning. But the problem is like with the grill, right, with the grill function on. But if we leave it for a longer time, it might end up being a little more chewy, or it might change the texture a little bit. So this is like, let's say, the last resort. But I would advise to try it with the proper equipment, just to have this beautiful effect. But if not, you can just leave it white and consume it like this. Maybe visually it will not be stunning, but I can assure you, Carolina, that the taste will not change much, because that's really the visual effect. Inside, the inulin is not more cooked because of applying the heat, so it stays the same. So just color-wise, if you don't mind that the finishing will be all white, it's not a problem.
Okay.
So I think that now the advices to all our participants is not to smoke, especially today and tomorrow before testing, to drink water and be as creative as possible. And I'm sure that whatever will come out, of course, it won't be these masterpieces that we saw, because we have to remember that it is the world master champion, the champion product. But I think that it will give everybody so much satisfaction to make their own version, that you will have a fascinating tomorrow meeting. I will just have one question to Jill: how long she was preparing her coffee cappuccino recipe?
Okay, so not long. But basically, I did a lot of research on chicory coffee. I mean, it really is amazing. Because you see that there's, we have a thing to share, but I would like to do that tomorrow if possible, because I think that's
yes.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of interesting. We start with that, in fact, tomorrow. So that we make the coffee, and then you have to, of course, have the coffee in between the desserts, and this will shift your taste perception. And it's really interesting what happens, actually. So, I mean, we do know from analysis, scientific analysis, that it does change your perception of taste. But I think this is a sort of experiment in reality with the inulin, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the results. So I would share that tomorrow as a PDF. You can download the PDF beforehand. If Carolina could make it available, download
it's already available. Yes.
Exactly. So they know where to get that, I imagine.
Yes. The first PDF that happened to stumble upon the chat, it's all the necessary links and materials, including also the link to the preparation of the chicory coffee cappuccino. Yes.
So I will share that PDF also online with everybody. So if they've left already and are cooking, then tomorrow they can download it as well. I think that's important, because I think it's important that we start eating all of the chicory products and not just the inulin. But I think the inulin is fantastic. But I think it's great to see the variety of products that can come out of this incredible plant. And so I think that's important to show that as well. And of course, with the CHICque project itself, the analysis and the development is really about, from the research scientists, it's really about thinking about terpenes and the possible medical use of cultivating and working with the terpenes from the same plant.
Thank you, Jill, so much. We are heading toward the end of the event. If you have one last question, please give it to the chat. And I would pose the last question to Matthew and Jordi and Adriana. Could you give us a hint of your cooperation before this workshop? Because we know that you cooperated before.
Marilla is just asking me if she's coming over here, and she said, "Do I have chocolate all around my mouth?"
I don't, but I did.
She did. Okay, Jordi, the question.
So actually, yes, to explain, actually, it's really interesting, because with Matthew, we met online during this project, right? But our let's say our connection, more than cooperation, our connection, even though we didn't know we're connected, right, started 3 years ago. It was 2018, end of 2018. I think that we also, just like Jill did, visited Sensus. At that time, I don't know how we didn't exactly run into Matthew in person, but we were also there interested in getting to know the ingredient that we were already working with. And then as a follow-up, we not only started working with inulin, but also oligofructose, because prior to our visit, we only knew about inulin and we were using inulin. And afterwards, we expanded into the world of inulin, used inulin, different types of inulin, right? And oligofructose, as we got much more knowledge about all these ingredients. And we are really, really passionate about it, and continue also transmitting this knowledge further on to pastry chefs, and hopefully also from now on, from today, home cooks alike.
Thank you. Matthew, one last sentence, word.
Yeah, and indeed, the connection was already there, and this renewed connection is even better, because I introduced this whole workshop to my colleagues again, and they are all very anticipating on also having a workshop. So probably we will come back to Jordi and then have an internal workshop again.
You're most welcome.
So thank you very, very much for being today with us. This is the last chance to say ask any question on, just comment anything. I give 1 last minute to everybody to speak up.
They're all cooking.
They're all cooking, yeah, probably.
Exactly. We're really looking forward to see how for you to share tomorrow the results with us. We knew that already some people, right, have the souffle in the fridge or are already in the kitchen, but we're very eager to find out how it went.
And we have our own doses of oligofructose and inulin. We'll be cooking as well, hopefully. I don't know if today, but certainly we'll do the recipes. And please keep at least one of the pack of the chicory coffee for tomorrow for the tasting. If you have drunk it already, maybe you can purchase some more. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay,
yeah.
Ciao,
thank you all, and see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
Ciao, ciao.